All right, welcome back. Daily trading recap for Money Friday of the 8th of October here, 2021. Going over housekeeping, SPY doing just really nothing today. Not a lot of exciting volume or anything happening on this Friday. That's kind of same story for the dollar volume around the horn for the rest of the markets. NASDAQ, $129 billion volume. NYSE, $193 billion volume. Interesting to see we're under $200 billion volume for the NYSE. And OTC is under that $2 billion volume mark as well. Ending the day down in total $6 after OTC fees, but actually ended up green after two trades, one on ENZC and then GROM. I was glad I checked how much cash I had available to trade in my cash account today. Could have used a day trade for some other ones that I wanted to be in, but I did a great job in preparation today. I knew after seeing CEI that was back up and had some crazy move that we'll talk about a little bit later. Knew that I just did not want to touch it, especially coming from the time that I traded CEI actually specifically, just very poorly on that last day of September. I think coming into day two, it was very easy for me to want to pull the trigger on that one when it's one of the prettiest pigs. It's kind of come back into the realm of consciousness and trying to play that, not really having a lot very keyed in for me that I was excited about. I could have very easily seen myself just tempted to pull the trigger on that one when I would have gotten absolutely wrecked. So A rating for me on that with my preparation before market open. I actually had a few tickers coming into the day on my short watch list that I had in any after hours day trading they had from yesterday doing my scans. SNDL was one of them. It's, of course, is a former runner, huge follower of CGC in the cannabis sector as well. I think I actually had this one in my long-term portfolio for a while. Crazy moves in the past. This was early 2021. Had an attempt again here, but now just kind of in this long kiss goodnight, just slow fading nothingness pattern. So news catalyst that came out after yesterday, and then this is a slam dunk pattern that I look for of whether it's immediately at the close that they put out this press release that they get the spike, a little bit of fail or maybe consolidation, nothingness, and then pre-market especially opens a lot weaker with less volume and maybe holds that range a little bit longer and then just fades all of market hours. And it's a very predictable and probable trade in my book. Maybe not all the times the most profitable percentage-wise opportunity, but I think very, very high hit rate on these if the market conditions are right. So, of course, this is a sub-dollar ticker, and I can't really trade those through Trade Zero. I think I can, but it's just a super high fee, or maybe I can't even. I don't know. It's just I don't want to be part of it either way if it's a sub-dollar trying to go short these ones, but that was a great one to see. Yeah, a little bit of hesitation for me because I know the name recognition of this ticker. If other people are seeing it on their scanners, they may want to go long this one. Even whatever the float really is on these ones, they can be very wide ranging, and as long as they're not extremely, extremely low float, I think if the market environment is right, like I said, they can produce the same amount of things over and over again. VXRT, same type of thing. The similar former runnerness, early 2021. You get this kind of just a little bit different of a daily pattern, but still just nothingness of a company, no excitement whatsoever. You get the press release after yesterday. For me, this is a pretty perfect, pristine. A little bit of start of the pre-market gets a little bit of volatile, but lack of volume coming in to push this thing any higher, continue beyond what it did for that initial squeeze after the close of yesterday's trading day. And it was just fortunate to see the first time I pulled this one up that it was already kind of pretty decently low off of that range that it was trading from here. So tough for me to say. I'm trying to go short all the way down here, potentially at like a 7.4 level or 7.5-ish. 7.6 level for how much more I thought it could go, because I'm basing that trade of kind of my profit target around that previous trading day's close, and to say, okay, yeah, we're trading it from we're looking for 30 cents on $7.40 entry. Yeah, I think it's very probable that this happens, and this, of course, as it played out, was just super predictable and followed respected VWAP extremely well. Came to the downside of that one, and just tough to see that, of course, eventually still kind of at the aftermath of the morning session, still breaking that previous trading day close price area, shown below there. So yeah, shoulda, coulda, woulda, certainly was there and ready for this one, but just hesitated and kept my day trade for right now in my other account because of how far it already was down. But this is just another great point too, to say that, I mean, even though it already is down, even though potentially that may decrease the probability of this trade falling off all the way to that optimal trade window, because we're not bagging in so many longs already. They may have already gotten out before market hours to tank this thing even further. But this one certainly disproved that. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one. And if they start to keep doing this over and over again and pulling a little bit more percentage moves in the pre-market, then we can say, even whatever point we see it, if it's still pre-market, if it's still a decent enough way away from that previous trading day's close, we're still in that spiking range, we're still in a gap up, then we can still potentially get short, because the probability, like I said, is still there. Even if, like I mentioned, that the further and further we fall off of that spike level, the probabilities may alter with how far off of that spike level it may come, if that makes sense. That was VXRT, and then EFTR was the other one that looking for short with the spike from yesterday. Had another spike. Did it have second press release? Look up here in this pre-market. It did have one at 10:52 a.m., which was a different news catalyst. But again, two different little spikes. So looking at this one, this is another great, if this one didn't have anything going on. In this pre-market, I think we would have totally seen just a lack and fading of volume to continue this one on. For this pre-market today, after what it did after the close of yesterday's trading day, and then I certainly would have gotten short just really anywhere blindly in that pre-market and played for the fade down, just the bleeding. Even if it was slow, I'm willing to hold this one, put it in the corner of my chart, just kind of look at whatever else and keep my eye on the price, what it's doing, but then understand that, hey, this probability is this one is going to die off. This one actually had a little bit of kind of dip and rip opportunity, actually. I think Bryce too, he got long on this one. You get the attempt to crack VWAP. It does actually break that $14 level and then gets slammed down with huge volume back to the downside and continues to shove this one in the door. Not the most profit-inducing awesomeness on this one, but again, repeatable and predictable. That's what I'm looking for, is that high win rate over and over again, rinse and repeat pattern that we can see play out more and more. So that was exciting to see on those three that I had on my watch list, that they really all ended up working out pretty well. For the afternoon session, it was just a weird feeling I had looking at all the different tickers, and maybe that was because of the lack of volume. It's a Friday going into weekend, people taking off, whatever. Just as I'm scrolling through the different scanners and stuff, it was just a weird kind of like just feeling I got from all the charts. Like I don't really know what it was or how to describe it, but there's just like nothing was so pure or beautiful. We got one or two that were pretty awesome that we'll go over, but I don't know, just kind of had that feeling, and I wrote that down in my journal. Wanted to mention it as well here too. So that was all we had for the introduction. Let's get into the trades on ENZC. So like I mentioned with the intro, I'm so glad I checked my cash account, because I had three other tickers that I think I was really looking at: ENZC, GROM, and then DATS for another first green day kind of attempt that I had also in my chart, looking at all those different variables on hopefully if they started moving at different time frames, if I could trade them individually while they were there and then go on to the next one. I'll get into GROM within the first one. It was really edging out between GROM and ENZC for what I wanted to trade. Haven't traded OTCs for a while, and kind of want to get my hat back in the ring too. And this wasn't the most, I knew it wasn't going to be the most instantaneous or the most volatile for me to trade, and not the most voluminous, of course, certainly too. But I think it's always good for me to keep that refresher course going on OTCs for when and if they ever start to heat back up again, go berserk. Some good ones around there too. Whatever that IF ticker, IFXY, something like that too. That was a great breakout trade today on that one that I don't think I mentioned, but that's a good mention for a plug there. So yeah, I said I was coming into this one looking to take like at least a $500 position minimum for what I was going to do on potentially a second day play, risking on this closing price yesterday. We got a little bit of a gap up from the bid and the ask as it was coming into market open, ready and waiting there to kind of slam this thing with a decent position size, especially to get over those OTC fees, which are just such a drag at times for for just a starting under PDT trader. Got a nice gap up as soon as, and then like I mentioned, I'm glad I checked my cash account about it, because I had $500 to trade left in the cash account itself too. I just tore through that cash, I guess trading GROM yesterday was that. Yeah, that must have been GROM yesterday. I was trying to do that $1,000 over and over again, in and out. That kind of screwed me over, but then glad I checked. So then I said, okay, now I definitely have to just focus on one ticker. So ENZ was my main one. Got 2,000 shares immediately right at the open, as huge bid support came in immediately, over 200,000 shares at like 195, I believe it was. So kind of traded off of that. I got a great fill, 1951. Pretty much right off the gate, we got a nice spike off of there. I don't know if it was something up with my level 2 on scans or whatever, but it was just a weird price action, choppy, level 2, and it was, for some reason, was holding those, you know, fake level 2 bid and asks when it's already past that and it's either below or above. You know what I'm talking about, of how they don't like clear immediately, just the funkiness of those OTCs. It seemed like there was a lot of them all at the same time, and just trying to read through those over and over again. So it's just like, okay, whatever. And the level 2, yeah, whatever it did. Like, kind of used whatever size was showing on the bid as my indicator to see, hey, is this thing actually going to keep morning spiking for that second day play, or is it just going to tank without me? So kind of rode that wave pretty nicely within these first 3 minutes here, and was looking fine and dandy, especially as we're crossing that 20-cent mark. That was a huge key mark that we had to get above. And then the real breakout point would have obviously been this 27.5 from whatever this day was. That looks like Wednesday of last week that we had to clear in order to get above that technical point, and kind of need a lot more volume, especially get past there. And then, of course, we have different little indicators. Looks like 22 here, of course. Different little resistance points along the way, too, that we would have to be mindful of if it wanted to spike that crazy, which I doubted. I was just looking at least for a little 10% scalp kind of right out of that morning spike gate. So, yeah, been in this situation so many times before as we get this little spike, then hard pullback. It's not a lot of volume, not like slamming down, but it's just that immediate point where I'm trying to take an exit as it's looking a little weak here, don't get filled, and then it starts panicking. Price action starts panicking hard, not necessarily the volume or level 2 bidders, asks, or sellers. But then still just can't get filled, and that gets me in just that little bit of, okay, now we got to adjust to this. We got to put me a little bit more on defense. Still, once again here, as it's dipping more and more, testing that open price, trying to get filled, getting orders in the stupid active trader window that is the death of me on this Thinkorswim platform. It's just screwing me over with these limit orders, stop orders, different criteria. But then eventually I just take a breath. I slow myself down in the moment, which was pretty good of me to do that, to take a step back while I'm still in the moment, you know, metaphorically, and say, okay, I've done this many times before. It could just perfectly bounce. If it's going to tank so hard off the planet, I got to be willing to accept that. I'm not throwing huge position size at this one. And even if I was, and I got to learn my lesson of being far more prepared on these limit orders that way. So I let it run, and I let it respect that open price risk level. Perfect bounce off of there. And at this point too, it was struggling a little bit more as it was hovering around that VWAP point. And I'm thinking, okay, this could be another perfect little nice consolidation area. I kind of dodged a bullet as it didn't just immediately snap through that breakout point and just start tanking without me, create a panic dip buy situation. But then I was able to get up, try it again a little bit more above that 20-cent area, and then failed again. Just hard sell off from there. So I ended up turning around what should have been a loser into a little just under 2% winner. Didn't clear OTC fees on it, but I'll certainly take it. The lessons of getting my feet back in the water with OTCs, I'll never regret that. And just keeping myself fresh on how they trade, the illiquidity at times, and just dealing with that type of price action is always invaluable for me too. Thought there was a little bit more in the tank initially, especially coming from what it did in this morning spike yesterday. As we're coming on those technical levels, I thought we could pick up a little bit more speed. It wasn't the most insane volume on this one today, only $6.3 million volume compared to what it did yesterday. Huge volume candle yesterday. We certainly needed a lot more volume to step up to push this thing up compared to what it did that yesterday, just using easy volume comparison for price action on that regard. But that was it for ENZC. Going over to GROM now, my second trade. I had like $50 left. Of course, so, well, I'll actually start at the beginning. My trading plan for this one was going to be that creating this very beautiful and perfect wedge immediately in this pre-market. And I'm thinking this thing could just perk nicely right immediately out of the gate. And it was coming. It was pointing perfectly at market open. So I'm thinking, I think we get a huge squeeze. It's going to break to the upside from there and just rip within the first minute. And that was what I was going to trade my thesis on both of these if I was using, if I was going to had the cash to trade both ENZC and GROM. And then I checked my cash account and said, oh, I only have like $500 to actually trade. So I let that one go. And of course, this was the golden goose. This was an immediate, of course, you know, maybe I wouldn't even have gotten a fill right out of the gate, but perfect 10% opportunity right within the first 2 minutes. And it was like, just one of those things right out of the gate. And this one just was holding so well time and time again. Of course, we're in this, you know, third day of this run up after it had that crazy curl 3 days ago on the 6th. When I let it go on the 6th, trying to trade it that day, and then tried to trade it, I think, again yesterday. so boggle. But anyway, looking at now, kind of the thought comes in your head to, okay, we're spiking again here out of the open. Are we going to do this 3 days in a row? Are we going to rinse and repeat where we get a morning spike pretty much for the whole entire morning session for the 3rd day in a row? Is it going to do that same thing again? So it wasn't like the most voluminous day, wasn't like the most slamming of red candles. You know, we get these, any breakout attempt here, we get these hard red candles that pull it immediately back down. You can see by the volume especially too. And cracks VWAP a little bit, but just continues to get bought back up. And you see these bottom wick to red candles as well too, right around that VWAP area. It's holding well. And it just became this long, drawn out, long trap that for me in my eyes too, was, I mean, this is looking great. Thinking I gotta take at least a small position, so prompted to take the last amount of cash that I had and $100, I think, yeah, 20 shares to 5.3, whatever, trying to play for this break where this was actually kind of the second breakout attempt and fail. I thought we were building to actually get the quick squeeze and spike to the upside, but that one ended up failing. And as it's breaking that VWAP, I'm still giving it the room. I'm still thinking, hey, I don't think this trade is over as of yet. I don't think this chart is done, but as it's pulling back harder, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I think it's done. I think it just fall off the face of the earth, which again was a little bit early in that thought too, but then also a little bit wrong of how it reclaimed once again too after that exit. Pulled back a little bit harder, but still respected this little regional low of day here. Continued to put in higher lows, gets immediately bought back up, respects VWAP to a little bit, dojis around a VWAP crack attempt. Bought back up again, another breakout try, but then just kind of fails and peels off of there. And then huge jump to the downside off of that huge long trap in that regard. And pointing to the fact that, yeah, it's hard to do these same types of patterns 3 days in a row. Somebody's going to pick up on that style eventually. So 3% loss on that trade for what I did to respecting risk levels as they were. Thought it was a good entry for... It wasn't the most hard level 2 or time and sales base trade that I was buying on support, as you can see by the volume chart in that regard, but I felt convicted enough to throw the last amount of cash I had at it for any opportunity could squeeze the upside, because this one is certainly, she's a runner, she's a track star, I'll tell you that for that one. But that was GROM. Yeah, frustrating to see it do exactly what I thought it was going to do after that wedge. That was pretty nice to see. Frustrating, of course, to not be a part of it. I picked the wrong girl, right, but the other one. But that was GROM. CEI. Now we got to mention too. Those are my only 2 trades. So now just going over charts here on the day. Huge gap up once again. And then, like I mentioned in the intro, I could have totally seen myself just being tempted because not coming in with a lot of hard hitting stocks or trades or patterns that I was focused on coming into market open. Seeing this one back up percentage-wise with volume coming in, could have tried to convince myself that, oh, there's a dip and rip opportunity around here. Trying to play within the first few minutes of market open, trying to scalp any amount of technical level on the tick chart. I could have totally screwed myself over. So volatile within these first few minutes against this 10%. Yeah, beyond 10% within these first few minutes of volatility to the downside, to the upside. Wishy-washy this whole way. I think a lot of other people, Art of War was actually short this thing during pre, trying to play for the downside, and he got stopped out as it pulled back above VWAP in this little consolidation area just before it ended up peeling off hard for the whole rest of the day. But like number 7 mentioned, Jack number 2, the great, somehow predicting these things really nicely of, hey, be just cautious of this thing too for how it can bounce back, be respectful of it. And then piggybacking off of that of how Art of War mentioned, it would be stupid to be long at these types of price levels again, to still trying to buy the dip in a sense for how far it already is up from that dip from where we come in 2 days. So just coming off of that thesis for the shorts, whereas, you know, respecting the craziness as it can be there and not trying to be first in a short position, but just let the failure work out. And you've got still plenty of room to the downside for this one to work out for how far the gap up was today. So even after this thing fails to crack under VWAP and even trading it under, even after this hard red candle, which was the biggest volume candle of the day too, as that cracks that low a day. Even if you're shorting this bounce here too, trading for this percentage move, this little block to the downside, holding it for a longer term, the whole rest of the day, obviously not getting so incredibly greedy with it, but there's still plenty of room on these big crazy percentage movers to the downside than trying to be first. It doesn't have to be first you can let the trade work out. It was the same thing that happened for the initial run up too, going back to the first green day. It's not like you had to be short around this 485 level precisely and predicting that it was going to top out exactly at 485, get an entry there, and then play to the downside. Even after this halt, you could have got a short anywhere there. I know a heck of a lot of guys, that's how they were trading this one, and then got the gap down more to another short for easy profits and predictable profits that way too, but they weren't first, and that's how these ones just continue to play out over and over again. And that's, I think that gives me a lot of comfort as well too, not trying to force trades that aren't there in a sense, or trying to predict tops, or just take 1,000 paper cuts that way too. But that's just a great mention on that one for CEI. VYGR, geez, this one totally slipped my radar. What an awesome third day surge opportunity. Looking at the daily, so beautiful. Obviously, far mixed ratios for the volume candle that happened on the first day compared to the volume candle that happened on the second day, and what the body of the actual price action candle happened. Just pretty crazy. In this final little, this last hour and a half here of market hours, you get another crazy squeeze into the close here. So, you know, how much that was based on shorts trying to play this thing to the downside versus the actual initial shorts covering from that first green day, or any big price movement, any big players in this one actually pushing this price one to the upside for that third day surge pattern to roll out. But just what a beautiful, beautiful opportunity on this one. The liquidity, absolutely insane. $250 million volume on the day, 150,000 trades. And these are probably more what I should be looking at too, because it's not like this one ever really died off. It's from this perspective. The first green day wasn't the most volatile or trend proven day. Like it was a green day or it was a red day. And I think obviously if it's a red day, that obviously just shies everybody away from a third day surge pattern type of happening. But this one kind of held levels decently, didn't really die off, didn't show a huge amount of strength, but just held this little range, 3.6 to 4, little 10% window there that it just kept grinding and grinding. And I think the trade obviously has to come from, for a trade on this type of pattern, obviously has to come from, if volume is there, then certainly got to play on that on the third day. And if it's just kind of hovering and holding around those higher days, it's certainly a great indicator to say this thing could just go squeeze any of those remaining lingering shorts left in this one to the upside. And that's exactly what happened here. You just get this little window where it's holding above VWAP right around that little high a day, just under 339, sitting around as it's here in this little consolidation, 380 to 385-ish. Holding around there, attracting a little bit more volume. That first huge volume candle comes in, and that's your opportunity to strike. This thing just squeezed very nicely from there. Offered a few more legs actually to the upside, just continual grinding. I think Mark Crook nailed it pretty well for that one. And again, this kind of just random. I don't want to try to factor in or focus on this one that it's a repeatable pattern that way too, that you get the peak and the nice grinding as of a green day for the first green day, and then trying to trade that, oh, it's definitely probable then that it gets another short squeeze in the close. I think this was kind of a rare event for other shorts that were trying to easily bag in on this one for how high up it was already at this point with the lackluster volume, like I mentioned. They just got squeezed in the close there for a kind of, you know, call it freak price action on that point, not a predictable or repeatable action in that sense. But that third day surge pattern for the front of this move, I think, was certainly awesome. And yeah, shame I missed it. And I obviously didn't have the cash to trade it going for starting in on this one after ENZC and GROM. But great move on that regard. DATS, another first green day pattern, just kind of choppy a little. And it's still like this, you know, you call it this first green day pattern, but I mean, yesterday was still an up move. It looks red on the daily, but we're still grinding up. It wasn't like it was, you just tough so many blurred lines and all these things for how much you consider it. Oh, it's a first green day if it's closing above the previous trading day's close here, but it's still a red day from how it closed from the opening price. All those different factors. And even going into the morning hours for this one, it's just choppy. I was watching this one too and saw the price action kind of riding nicely. You get 8.8 to 9.3-ish here. Not close to 10%, but then pull back more or something. Okay, whatever. Not a lot of volume again. Just how I traded it yesterday too, of just not a lot happening, respecting, just not want to be chopped around this one. You get another fake out breakdown here again too that just pulled back more. They get another attempt that breaks down again. It's just a squeeze, comes out of nowhere. Big volume coming in to push this thing back up to VWAP. It's not like it was holding consistently well. Yes, it was putting in a few higher lows here. It was kind of climbing back a little bit to VWAP, and then just volume whoosh comes in to sweep this thing to the upside. You get another little VWAP hold type of play here, which again, for me in this market is not the most probable trade to happen of trying to trade these things to the upside when so many of them just pretend like they're holding VWAP well, look like they're putting in nice bottom wicks. This one's even above VWAP well. It's not even coming that close to touching VWAP. And just kind of slowly building back up to that high of day, putting in little fake out breakdowns here, fake out break ups here, pulling back down again. This one's just more choppy. That's just how it's traded. It's that kind of sketchy Wall Street better. I think this is a Wall Street better for DATS type of play too, but it's a first screen day play. That may be where these first screen day plays are evolving to, that it's, you know, even if it doesn't have the most awesome voluminous day too, that is, it's actually a green day because it's closing higher than it did the previous trading day off of that dip bottom. That doesn't really have to mean it's a first green day. Sometimes it does need, if it does have a hard fall off, sometimes it may need a hard reclaim, like CEI, just a little bit. Just depends on the time frame of it, when it's going to happen. Also, I wanted to mention ORIC. I just thought this one was cool. Huge sell-off day yesterday. After this is an American biotech. They obviously, the news catalyst yesterday was bad clinical data. Obviously, I didn't even look into it. Phase 1B trial that tanked this thing. 25 million floater, just sketch company. You get this very nice rebound on pretty similar volume today. Hard for me to say that I would have dipped on this one, actually, but it's respected that low a day from the previous trading day pretty well. Even that kind of opening price-ish, if you're basing trade around there, not the most awesome volume. Let's look what it did here. For actual volume, $34 million volume on the day. But respecting risk levels well, and just kind of a slow, continual grinder. Yeah, I doubt I would have been holding this thing for longer than hour, 2 hours. Would have certainly been taking off shares here, but nice percentage move on that one to the upside. Slow, continual grind. Complete reversal from that sell-off yesterday on that news. That was interesting to see on that one. So that was all I had around the market. Watchlist going in over the weekend. Man, I stuck my hand in the fire with OTCs on ENZC one time. Why not frickin' do it again? I got PUGE that I'm looking for a nice little potential panic dip buy. It's in this continual multi-day kind of parabolic move-ish here. Not the most insane or hugely immediate spiking, but it's taking in a little bit of volume here. We're getting in a nice little extension for the chart. We could see some potential opportunity for a panic dip buy in that one. We'll keep that in our radar. And then MJWL, again, it's not the most pretty to look at price action chart wise for all the dojis for the inconsistent trading that it's doing, but we're getting around this little 12-cent area level here where it tried to break out to the upside. If we gap up above there, I think it could produce some amount of support. It looks decent. These are obviously the most volume days too, so we're kind of beyond that for the volume profile sake, but technically it looks kind of decent. And again, this one is not the most liquid or awesome or pretty one to look at, even for me too. Especially, I want that liquidity. I want that hard immediate price action when it's just buffering and really not doing a whole lot. That just makes me want to get out. It just does not intrigue me for these style of trades. But if it does produce that price action, I certainly will be a watcher for sure on that. And then BMRA, I also wanted to mention. I had this one on watch a while ago, and Bowen mentioned, I didn't even realize this was on the Stocks to Trade weekly watch list for a potential mover. It is a little floater. It's been holding. It's a biotech, so we know it's could be potentially sketchy. It's just been holding around here for a while after that first big green volume day. We could see some more parabolic moves coming if that volume comes in. It's just, I really have nothing hard on it as of right now. But certainly we'll keep a watch. I think TUI did actually trade this one as well, if I'm right, in the small cap recap chat room for that. But yeah, if the volume is there, that's certainly got to be it for me too. I'm not going to bang my head against the wall for how choppy and how inconsistent this price action is as of right now. But we'll keep it on watch if it does attract that volume. That was all I had. This was a great week to start off the month. Just keeping that mentality sharpened, refined every single day, trading more on substance and value, preparing myself far better for that market open than I have done in the past too. I think we're making great strides towards continuing to find who I am as a trader, the trades I like to trade, and understanding when I should not be trading, when I should be able to step away and not push a button. Same thing like I did with CEI today too. I knew it was enticing, and seeing it back up again, I could have seen myself definitely trying to trade a little dip buy, dip and rip, just any amount of little technical consolidation, trying to play for a squeeze to the upside. But I'm glad I took that little step back, took another breather to say, let's look at something else. It's not the most substance-based trade. It's not the most, you don't have to be in it. Just let it do what it's going to do. I think it's great steps for me as a trader going forward in the future. I sincerely thank you guys for watching. We will catch you guys on Monday.